right, we're live. Turn the volume down just a little bit. I had to change the music up. I got in trouble. I got a little trouble for using some copywritten music in the last video, and don't want to have that happen again. But this is the first stream that we're doing on YouTube. If you guys were with us last Monday and the Thursday before that, we were streaming on Twitch.com. I like that platform, but I think that the audience that I'm appealing to, or the audience that I'm targeting rather, is a little bit more familiar with YouTube. I think everybody has a YouTube account, or at least some type of account that can access it, where Twitch was a little confusing for some people. Having to download the app and create an account was just a little bit too much. So without further ado, we're going to jump into this tonight. This is going to be the first stream completely dedicated to above water photography. And my sound is on, I think. We're good. Let me just double check that. Can you guys hear me? Feel free to type something in the chat if you can hear me. Let me just double. Yeah, I can hear it. All right. So we're good. So yeah, like the last two nights that we did this, we did some underwater photos. I think we might have done like one photo that wasn't underwater, and that is what I do most of the time. Like most of my photos are done underwater, and that's what I really enjoy. But I love above water photography as well, and I think that everybody can relate to this, right? You either you're taking a photo with your phone, or maybe you have a professional camera, or any type of camera, and you're taking photos and you just want to make those look a little bit better. And the cool thing about this program that I'm using, which is Adobe Lightroom, is you can do this on your phone also. Just about everything I'm going to do tonight on Lightroom, you can also do on your phone. In fact, I edited a few today for some people that sent them to me, but they're not going to make it on the stream tonight. But I just edited them and sent them back. Probably going to have to dial back how much I do that. It's going to be a little time intensive. But the only thing that you can't do on your cell phone, or I haven't figured out how to do it or even tried, is the stuff that we'll be doing on Photoshop, which is a little bit more advanced. Keep in mind all of the things we're going over tonight. You guys can find a more in-depth tutorial on YouTube. There's plenty of guys out there and girls who do really great instructive videos on that. The one that I watch probably the most is going to be like Peter McKinnon, Chris Howe. Those guys have really great knowledge base in there. But anything that you ever want to do with a photo, whether it's on Lightroom or Photoshop or any other program, YouTube's going to be your friend. So let's jump right into this. I got 6 photos, maybe not 5 photos, maybe 6. We'll see how much time we have. I do want to keep this down to like 1 hour. Nobody has said if they can hear me or not, so I'm just going to keep rolling with this. I'm going to try to keep this down to 1 hour. I have some photos in here that I want to go through. One of the things that I've really enjoyed by doing these streams is going back through these raw photos that I've had that I didn't edit, or I didn't have time to edit, or I forgot about them, and rediscovering them and refining them. With the exception of this photo, I actually have already edited this photo. Spoiler alert. But I felt like it was a great photo to use to demonstrate a few different techniques and tips and styles as we go through this. So the first thing you guys are going to do is upload your photos into Lightroom. If you don't know how to do that, like I said, there's going to be a lot more information on the web than I can provide. But let me bump this up so that you can all see it. We're going to go into the develop module here. This up out of the way. All right, so here's the blank slate that we're working with, or rather the blank slate, the raw photo that I took. This was actually in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Really awesome city, great cultural city for photography. They have a lot of really cool things happening on the streets, and I think we're going back there next spring. So if you get this shot again, different sky, I don't know, we'll see. So the one thing that I do when I get into Lightroom is I'm going to drag this little slider here out to the left. Right now, this is going to be the standard setup that you get when you open up Lightroom. I like to drag that out. I just think that it gives you a little bit more range here, so you can fine-tune it a little bit better. Working. Let's see what's going on here. You guys hear me? I see 4 people in here. Maybe I'm not looking in the right place, or nobody's saying anything. Test. It's okay. The cool thing about this YouTube platform is also going to record this video so that you guys, if you ever want to come back, scrub through, look at it a little slower, watch it again, you can do that. So without further ado, the very first thing that I'm going to do with this photo is actually, let's collapse all of these, come down to lens correction, and I'm going to remove chromatic aberrations and enable profile corrections. So in this case, it's not detecting it because this might be a JPEG photo. All right, you can hear me? You sent it in a text? You can't? All right. Hey, David, how you doing? Glad you can hear. Sounds all right? And I'm getting messages on Facebook. Cool. So the remove chromatic aberrations, that is going to remove some of the pixel tearing between blue and greens, and there's going to be better explanations than that on YouTube or even Google. Enable profile corrections. If this was a raw photo, it would actually have the information in the photo telling the computer which camera I used and which lens I used, and it can actually adjust the distortion of the lens, remove some of the vignetting, just to give it a little bit more flatter profile than what it comes out of the camera as. So that's the first step. Then I'm going to come up here to the basic treatment options, and the very first thing we're going to do is check the white balance. I kind of like the way this is looking already, but I want to see what Lightroom thinks I should have done with the white balance. So I'm just going to click up here and hit auto and see what that does. So this is what Lightroom thinks. I think it's a little too warm for my taste, but you can look at these values here for the temperature and the tint and just keep those in mind. You can go back to how it was shot. And they did want me to warm it up a little bit. Maybe we'll just go a touch. Pick that tint up just a touch. That looks okay. If you hit your backslash button, it'll give you your before and after. You can definitely see it's looking a little warmer there. But I'm not going to mess with the white balance much more than that. Big difference between underwater photos, for me at least, and the above water photos is that the white balance usually hits a lot better above water, right? You don't have to contend with the water and the lack of light down there, and the cameras do a lot better job. Sony in particular does a really good job above water, I'm sure. Canon and Nikon and those do as well. So the next thing I'm going to do is adjust the exposure, and one little trick that you guys can do if you're not sure if you should bring the exposure down or lift it up, is you can hold your shift button and then just double click on the word exposure, and Lightroom's going to give you their suggestion. Now you could go with this negative 0.55, or if you want it to be a little darker, a little lighter, you can do that as well. I tend to like to underexpose my photos a little bit, so I'm going to take this down just a little bit further than what Lightroom suggests. I'm not going to mess with the contrast yet because we're going to get into that here. The next step that I almost always do is adjust my highlights and my shadows. So the highlights, I would say 90% of the time you're going to be making those darker to bring out some of the details like in the sky and any of the lighter spots. Same thing, you can hold shift and double click on that, and Lightroom is suggesting bringing that all the way down. This is not a raw photo, so it's not going to have quite as much information as a JPEG file, as much as a raw file would. This is a JPEG file. Got it mixed up there. But I'm going to bring this, lighten it up just a little bit more than that. And then the shadows, we're going to probably lift those up. Same thing, shift, double click, and that's going to bring out a little bit more detail in the shadows down here as well as on the actual castle itself. Now, this was shot on a Sony a6300, which is a crop sensor camera. So it's not going to have that full 35 millimeter sensor on there and not quite as much dynamic range, but still, I really love this photo. We're going to go ahead and boost the whites up. Same thing, you can double click this. And I always like to see what Lightroom suggests. But, what do you guys think? You like it to be brighter, darker, more contrast, less? Your call. The other thing you can do with the whites and blacks, if you hold your Alt key and then you drag, you can actually see where it starts clipping. So that spot right there in the middle of the screen that just turned white, that's telling me that that spot is pure white. And if you go in, if you zoom really far in, there's zero detail. There's no information there. Okay? So we'll zoom that back out. I don't want that. I want there to be detail in there. Maybe just bring out a little bit of the white. And then, oh, good right there. Same thing with the blacks. You can hold Alt, drag this down, and now you're only going to see blacks coming through once those start clipping. So we don't want this to be all black, but we can definitely make it pretty dark. And that's going to add a ton of contrast. While adding contrast is going to add saturation, so we might have to be careful with that moving forward with this as well. So you can just go ahead and hit that backslash button again. This is the before, much flatter, less contrast, less depth, and after. So this is just the initial treatment. It's always a good idea, not always, but sometimes it's a good idea to go back through these again after you've made your initial adjustments and just say, okay, maybe I do need to bring that exposure up just a little bit more now, or maybe the highlights can actually come down a little further, however you want to do it. But I'm pretty happy with the way this is starting. Get a little drink of water here. Anybody in here ever been here? Been to this castle? I think it's called, I'm going to butcher it if I say it, Castillo de something. I don't want to say the wrong thing. One thing I didn't notice, usually I do this first, but I didn't notice it until just now, is this horizon line's a little crooked. Okay, so I'm going to go up here to my crop tool, and I'm going to just straighten this horizon line out by grabbing my angle tool, drawing a straight line right across the top of this castle. Not a huge difference, but it's a little straighter. Once you see it, I'm going to mess with you. In fact, look at down here in the bottom. I'm going to crop this a little bit more so that's out of the way, and this pole right here is out of the way. Nice. Good. I can live with that. Maybe move it over just a little bit more to the left. Yeah, I like it. All right, so the next thing that we're going to do is adjust what Lightroom calls your presence, and this is going to be your clarity, dehaze, vibrance, and saturation. The clarity is going to create more contrast between the dark edges and the light edges. So if you ever don't know what something does, you can always just take it to the extremes, drag that way up or bring it way down. Generally, I increase this value unless I'm shooting like a portrait or someone's face where there's going to be skin tones and you want to smooth those out. You can bring the clarity down a little bit. But I like drama. I like photos to be a little bit more that HDR look without going over the top. So I'm going to bring the clarity up just a little bit, maybe like 10. And then I'm going to bring the dehaze up just a little bit as well. Maybe 10 as well. Probably pretty good. Befores and afters. All right. So I'm going to bring the vibrance, let's try going up a little bit, but I don't want this to be way too green. Probably like 15. Bring the saturation down, the overall saturation down just a little bit. 7. That looks a little bit more natural. I think, go back really quick. I think before it didn't quite look as natural. So I'm liking that. Looks pretty good. All right. So I'm going to get my contrast by using the tone curve here, and I know that the tone curve can be a little intimidating when you're new to Lightroom. Great news is Lightroom has these little presets. If you drop down here, you can hit like medium contrast, strong contrast, and you're gonna get this like little inverted S. Oh, I guess it's not inverted, it'd be like a normal S. You're gonna get this S curve in your lines here, and if you don't know how to do this without the little preset thing, what you can do is just click. I hit Alt so it doesn't move it up and down. Click, click, click. This is going to represent your histogram, which you see at the top. Left side being your blacks, this being your shadows, the middle is your midtones. This line right here is going to be your highlights, and all the way at the right side is going to be your whites. So it's going from dark to light. So anything that I do here, if I drag this down, it's going to make the darks darker. If I lift it up, it's going to make it brighter. You can always just double click to remove the point. And then ask questions in the chat if you can. Send me a text message. Hang on one second. And then if I adjust over here, it's going to affect the highlights. So what we often do is do this little inverted S pattern looking thing. But like I said, Lightroom does have a preset so that you can go to medium contrast or even a strong contrast and see what you like. In this case, I'm leaning more towards the strong contrast because I like that drama. I might bring the midtones up just a little bit. Good. Liking that. I would really like the sky to pop a little bit more, and the green down here is a little too much on the shadows. But we can do that with um, graduated filters later. I'll go over that. I'm going to go ahead and close the tone curve. And now we're going to come down to detail. And this is where you're going to see the photo pop, right? Again, this was shot on an APS-C camera, so it doesn't have quite as much detail. But we're going to bring the sharpening up quite a bit. Bring that sharpening up to like 50. But right now it's just putting sharpening over the entire photo. Mama? Mama's in the chat. Me too. I don't know what you're saying, me too, but I agree. But we're putting sharpening all over the entire photo, and there's some things in here that we don't want to sharpen. Great example would be, let me see if I can zoom in one. The sky. We don't need to sharpen like just the blue area in the sky. If we zoomed in really far, you might be able to see this pixelation. Depending on what screen you're looking on, you might not be able to see that right now. So you have this tool right here called your mask, and if you hit Alt and drag that over, it'll show you what you're actually sharpening. In this case, black conceals, white reveals. So the white is the area that is being sharpened, and the black is not being affected. So our sky now is not getting pixelated quite as much as it was before. Hang on, let's see what this question is. Maybe a stupid question. Okay, so text message question coming through. Maybe a stupid question, but does changing the picture change the size of the file at all other than the cropping? Well, what's normally happen is we're using a raw file and then depends on what you export it as, right? So for me, I'm using a raw photo, which is a file type in the camera, and exporting it as a JPEG file. I'll export this photo in a few different formats depending on where I'm going to use it. So if I'm going to upload this to Instagram, I'm going to make it a smaller file size so it doesn't have as much compression. And you can look online and see what the maximum file sizes or dimensions or resolution that things like Instagram and Facebook allow. And then go from there. So generally the file is getting a little smaller than what it comes out of the camera. But you can, if you expand it, make it bigger, oftentimes you'll make it more pixelated. I don't know if that answered the question at all. So the next thing, we have our color noise, our luminance adjuster and our color noise reduction adjuster here. With this photo, again, because it was a crop sensor and we do have a little pixelation, I'm going to lift this up, and all it's going to do is smooth out some of these pixels. I'm not going to bring it up. Usually I don't pull it up more than like 30. We'll do like 20. And you can preserve some of that detail as well by bringing this up. Color, usually I bring that up to about 20, 25. And there we go. That's looking pretty good. All right, so now that we have done all of those things, here we go. Sorry, I just adjusted the white balance. I wasn't crazy with how warm it was. Again, going for more of a moody tone, generally a little cooler temperature is going to look nicer. So here's the before photo. You can tell that it's a little bit hazy out. And then after, definitely see that those greens. I think the sky looks a little overproduced here, so we can adjust that as well. So next step, we are going to remove some of these distractions from here. Most of it we can do in Lightroom, but some of it might require some Photoshop work. So up here you have this spot removal tool. Your hotkey, you can just hit the Q button, and it's going to bring up this little circle. And you can make that circle bigger or smaller by using your scroll wheel or just coming over here and adjusting the size. Your feather is going to be how much, I don't know if I can use it without saying it in the definition, but it's going to feather the edge so it's not such a harsh edge when you go in there and remove it. So I like to have the feather, you know, pretty good. We're going to zoom in here 1:1 down here and look at some of these things. We got like a little garbage bin. So if we just put the circle over it, click, Lightroom will do the rest. Same thing with this little family. Sorry guys. Down. The trash can. They are serious about not littering on this field apparently. I don't like that sample. Drag it over. There we go. Look at all these people. This is going to be tough because we have the path. And if I just click on like this kid, you'll actually see the path sort of, wow, it selected the kid next to him. Let's try the runner. You're going to see that it's going to kind of make, I'll explain it. It's going to skew the path. It's not going to make a perfect clear spline. So that's something we could fix in Photoshop. That didn't work either. So I might just leave some of these people in here and get them in Photoshop. I think this might be able to get rid of that. We'll leave it. Go ahead and hit done. Out. All right, so you can see that not only is it obviously looks a lot different than the way that we first came out of camera, but also these guys are no longer in the let's go ahead and hop into our HSL sliders. So this just brings up the entire color spectrum here, and you can adjust the hue, change the colors, the saturation, increase the value of the colors, or the luminance, which would be the brightness and darkness of each color. Don't worry, we'll move a lot quicker when we get to the next photos. I'm just trying to go over everything so we understand. We're going to go in here to the saturation. I'm going to bring the blues down a little bit. I think it was a little overdone in the sky, and maybe the purples as well. There we go. You can see the sky changing colors. I like that. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to pull this photo into Photoshop. I'm not going to remove every single person because it's going to take a lot of time, but I wanted to show you. And if you watched the streams before, you'd see me use this tool quite often. It's a really useful tool. It's a little intimidating tool, but it's actually pretty easy to use. So you just click on Photo up at the top, edit in, Adobe Photoshop, and we're going to edit a copy. And I'm pretty sure that Adobe has these packaged together. If you purchase Lightroom, you can purchase Photoshop for no additional cost. They kind of come in a package. I think it's like $9.99 a month. If you are a teacher or student, I'm pretty sure you get a better rate than that. But all right, so what we're going to do now, come over here to our layers. I'm just going to unlock that, and I'm going to hold Alt, drag it down, make a second layer so that we can work on this one right here. And we're going to zoom in on who or what we want to remove. In this case, this huge crowd of people. And we're just going to grab our lasso tool, and we're just going to draw around them who we want to get rid of. Like that. Come up here to Edit, Content Aware Fill. So now what's happening is Photoshop is everything in green here is what it's going to be pulling colors from, and in this case it did a pretty good job. If I just go in here and look at the preview window, I can see that they're pretty much gone. But sometimes it doesn't do a great job. It'll pull some of like the castle or other people into your removal, your selected area, and you can go in here with your little tool and remove what you don't want Photoshop to use. In this case, it looks great, and I don't really have to mess with it, so I'm just going to go ahead and hit OK. And just like that, be the before and after. So that was the photo. We just got rid of frickin' group of people. So I could do this one by one. I could go through all of these people individually and do this. I can actually get rid of this truck if I wanted to. You can also use things like the clone stamp tool to do this. But this is the one area that I did want to talk about because we noticed we couldn't really do this with the spot removal tool. It is pretty pixelated. But if I went ahead and grabbed this lasso tool and just this guy. Photoshop's going to do a lot better job at realizing there's a path there. And just like that, you know, so you can do that. I'm not going to do any more of them, just for the of time. But let's go ahead and hit our X button and save it, and it will pull the edit back into Lightroom as they talk together. And now you can see that that group of people and the runner is gone. All right, so this is a little too contrasty for me just looking at it again. Sometimes what I'll do is like I'll look away from the photo, let my eyes reset, look back, and then see what I think. If you watch the photo change and you never look away, you don't notice how dramatic of a difference it is. It's kind of like you bought a puppy and you watched that puppy grow for like 3 months, you wouldn't really notice a huge change. Whereas if your friend bought a puppy and you saw it on day one, but didn't see it again until 3 months later, you'd be like, wow, it's changed so much. So weird example, but that's kind of what I mean. So I'm going to come back up to the tone curve. I can't do it in here because it was in the other edit. So I'll just come up here to basic and bring that contrast down. All right, looking pretty good. So overall, this is kind of how the photo would look. I think I would probably darken the sky and lighten the grass. Personally, I think it's too dark in the grass here. There's a lot of grass. So what you can do is click on your graduated filter here. We're going to pull up this slider. If you hit the show selected mask overlay, you can see what's being affected with the edit. Basically this whole shadow area. And we're just going to increase the exposure a little bit on that. Maybe not even a half step. 0.3, pretty good. And on the flip side, we are going to create another one that is going to pull down. Get that sky in there. Same thing. You can click this, see what you're working on. And we're actually going to bring the exposure down a little bit. So you can see before and after there. Brighter sky, darker grass, and we kind of flipped it, evened it out a little bit. And then from here, you can put your own style on it if you want to desaturate it and make it look even more moody. You know, bring that saturation down, make it more like a vintage looking photo. But in this case, I like the colors. I think you have to have that green. And about it. Come down here into my effects. I always love throwing a little vignette on there just to darken up the corners. Bring your eye to the subject, which is the castle. I think the one thing I would do with this photo is make it more of a panoramic. I think the sky up here is not exciting, and the grass down here is a little too much as well. So maybe go into a crop here and do something like 16 by 9. That's what that is. Oh yeah, I already did that. So we can go into like a custom and just pull this up a little bit, unlock that, go back, unlock that, and now we can come up a little tighter here, less here. Definitely want that whole cloud in there. Something like that. So let's go ahead and go full screen on that. Get me out of there. And that's what you got. Huh? My computer gonna crash in the middle of this. Full screen. There we go. Looks pretty good. So spent a lot of time. Wow, spent a lot of time on that photo. So we're gonna try to cruise through these next few. I'm gonna skip this one. Although I think there's a lot to be had with this photo. Specifically, if I brought in a different sky. I'm not a fan of just this whited out sky. If it was blue, it'd be one thing. But this was a photo that we took in, where were we now? Florence in Italy. And one thing that I will do, you know, sometimes you only have one day in a place like this, and I'm not probably going to go back to Florence for a very long time. So you got to work with the sky you got. Sometimes I will swap out that sky, use like a stock sky from Google, and put it in the background on Photoshop. But one of the viewers, Steve Cook, sent me this photo. Actually, he sent both of these photos, and we're going to work on these. These were actually shot with an iPhone. It just goes to show you guys can make great compositions using these cell phones. The cameras on them are actually phenomenal for something that can just fit in your pocket anywhere you go. And I really love the thought that went into this photo, or maybe it looks like there's some thought put in this photo. It's a really cool composition, and how I'm assuming it's his sun is sitting here, and you got the light coming down through here, and then you can tell that it's pretty high up, just with all this area down here. So we're gonna go ahead and edit this photo just because I want to show you what you can do with just a cell phone photo. And in fact, in this case, you really don't have to do much. And that's the one thing with editing. Sometimes I'll make this extreme change to a photo, and sometimes you have to do very little. In fact, you're taking away from the photo by over-developing, over-enhancing it. So same rules here. We're going to come down to, and you're going to notice a lot of repetition in this, but the more you edit, the more comfortable you're going to get with the process, and you'll notice that every photo is a little bit different. You can adjust some things here and there, change the colors, change the saturation, etc. So we're going to come down to lens correction, with chromatic aberration, change lens profile. And in fact, this photo knows that this was shot on iPhone XR, the back camera at 4.25 millimeter. Wow, a lot of information. That's good. Come up here to the top. We're going to go back to our basic edits here, and let's just kind of see what Lightroom thinks in terms of white balance. I hate it. Way too blue. We're just going to go how it was shot at a camera. I think that looks great. I don't think you need to make any adjustments to the white balance of this photo. So let's come in here, and I think I'm actually going to bring this down a little bit. Again, it's just my style, and every person's different, but I tend to like to underexpose photos, make them darker, bring out more of that moody feel than like the warm, vibrant, bubbly photos. There's a place for that. It's just not my preference. All right. So again, we're gonna hit Shift, double click on the highlights, see what I almost said Instagram, what Lightroom thinks. Same with the shadows. I do want to bring up the shadows, but not too much. I wanted to have that contrast. We will get more of that in the tone curve. The whites, we're going to actually bring those down a little bit because you have this really harsh, bright white up here. And the blacks, I'm going to pull those down a little. Actually, I'm going to pull them down a lot. I want some serious mood here. 30-ish. Or after. All right. Let's go ahead and crop this because I think all these blocks down here aren't doing much for the photo. I think I'm just going to pull this up. I'm also going to get that shadow out of here. I wasn't a huge fan of the shadow. That, have him centered, nice, enter. Needs to be a little higher. That. There we go. That looks good. I like that. All right, so coming in here, we're going to bring the clarity up just a little bit, like I said before. Dehaze. I'm actually going to dehaze this a lot. I want to really get that mood. Maybe not 100, but. And if you guys don't see the difference right away, you can see the left side of the photo. Taking out those highlights. We're taking out that light that's leaking in from the side of this photo. All right, I think that did a lot. We'll bring the vibrance up just a little bit. I'm going to desaturate this just a touch. I don't want to lose the orange because I think the orange is the whole thing you're saying with this photo. It's just how rich these natural colors are in this cave. I'm assuming this is out in Arizona or Nevada or something like that. Does he have... Oh, we can see exactly where you were. Let's see. This was in Sedona, Arizona. Scary, right? The information that's in a photo from your cell phone. Watching you. All right, so coming back down into the tone curve, I'm going to go ahead again and just go ahead and hit this medium contrast. I think if I put it on high contrast, it's going to be too much. But the one thing I do want to do is pull these blacks up This gives you more of that vintage looking photo by lifting the blacks a little bit. You can see the adjustment just by removing the tone curve. So before, after, blacks are a little too dark. That. I like it. All right. So that's looking pretty good. Let's come down to our details panel, and we're going to sharpen the crap out of this. I'm like 70. That mask on there so we're not sharpening everything. Up there. Little noise reduction. Oh, actually, a lot of color noise reduction so we can get rid of some of this blue. Not a fan of that blue. We could probably just get rid of that with a brush. So we're going to take our adjustment brush here. A nice small brush. We don't even need to have a ton of feather on that. Paint right down this blue area here and just desaturate that. Touch for a lot. Yeah. That's better. All right, and the green down here is a little distracting. Unless we brought some of this green and put it up here in Photoshop, that's one option. But the quick option is going to be coming down to our HSL sliders and just desaturating the greens. So pulling those down, you know, if we pull it down all the way, they'd be gray. Probably not what we want. But just so they're not so apparent in the photo. And when we vignette this, it's going to make it even darker down there. But what I am going to do is a little graduated filter, drag it this way, increase the value of that just a little bit. Here we go. I like that. On down, throw a vignette on it. You can actually go pretty far with this because we are going with that moody look. Looks good. I'm going to put a radio filter down here. I still don't like how bright the greens are and everything. We're going to actually invert this, so now we're only adjusting the inside of the radio filter. Bring that exposure down. Saturation down. Yeah. All right. So here's your before, after. A lot more contrast, a lot more drama. I think I might desaturate it just 20. Looks good. Before and after. So that's one. Call it done. And if you guys ever have photos that were all taken in the same light or the same area, you don't have to do this whole process on every single photo. One thing you can do is right click on your photo that you just edited. And if you go to your develop settings, you can actually copy all of those settings and then just paste it on a similar photo. And you can make like small adjustments from there rather than going through every single slider and doing that over again. In this case, we don't have another photo that's exactly like this. If we copy these settings and put them on this photo, develop settings, paste. Doesn't look terrible. Somewhere to start, but I do want to start from scratch with this photo. So that was the before and after on that guy. If you like dark and moody, you're going to enjoy that photo. If you don't, you're in the wrong channel. What is the rating you set? Okay, so what I like to do is just hit numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. And that's just to give it, you know, a rating. I use it more of a cataloging system when I first dump, 800 photos into Lightroom, because when I'm shooting underwater, it's just taking 10 photos a second. I'll go through them one by one, and I will give them 1 star if it's like just the best of that series of 5 photos, or if it has some potential, I'll give it a 1. After I've gone through all the photos and I've given the ones either a 1 or a 0 rating, basically, I will just delete all the zeros, right? Or I'll put them on an old hard drive. Usually I delete them. They take up a ton of space. And now, instead of having 800 photos, I have 100 photos that are all rated number 1. Then I go through those again. Second pass, number 2, 2, 2 on the best of those. And from there, I kind of condense and understand which photos I'm going to work with in there. And then usually 5 stars is just what I give to a photo that I've completed the edit. I'm happy with it. I'm going to export it at like that. If it's something that I'm going to come back and maybe tweak later, I'll give it like a 4. But generally, I do like 1s and 2s and then 5s. So, all right. Hope that answers the question. This photo is incredible. Great composition, great eye. Steve taking a shot. I think it really, to me, it's like I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, all right, you know, he got the boys out, his family, they brought him out here, and they're, you know, maybe the whole trip out there they didn't want to go, or they're like, I don't want to go out here to the Grand Canyon, but and now they're here and they're like just in awe, like they're not saying anything, they're just all staring out at this amazing landscape. And that might not be what happened, but that's what I see, and that's what a photo does. Is it brings up a thought process, a feeling, and emotion. So first thing I'm going to do with this photo, just like I've done with all the other ones, go into lens correction. Boom, boom, we're done there. Second step, we're going to crop it. Actually, we're going to straighten it. So I'm going to make that horizon line nice and straight. Can't unsee that. Make sure that everybody's in here. Not cropping out anyone. That looks good. And we're going to hop right into the white balance. So again, we can see what Lightroom likes. For whatever reason, they like to make these really warm. It's just not my style. And leave that alone. All right, so highlights, dropping them a lot. Brings out that sky. Before and after. See the sky? Watch that sky just come down. Got this really cool cloud. I think Steve called this a Grand Canyon cloud. I don't know if that's a thing. And then lift those shadows up just a little bit. Let's go ahead and see what Lightroom thinks. Bringing those down. Sorry, bud. Bring the whites up. Blacks. Bring this down a little bit. And now we can add that contrast by bringing in this dehaze. I'm going to dehaze this again. I like using the dehaze tool. Sometimes go overboard. It's an easy tool to do too much with. But with these really jagged edges, you need it. You gotta have it. Same with clarity. Bring that up about 10. You can already see before and after. A little bit more contrast, a little bit more detail. I'm gonna bring the vibrance up quite a bit. Not quite a bit. Saturation down. All right, coming back down the tone curve. Let's go ahead and throw on a medium. Strong? No. Except gonna lift up highlights just a little bit more. Get those highlights in the, I want to call it a mountain range. I keep wanting to call it a mountain range. I know it's not a mountain range, but go with that. All right, you can see the added contrast in there, but there's a lot of blue in here that maybe you like it, maybe you don't. If we just went in here into the HSL sliders and brought the blue down, it would kind of mess up the sky. It would mess up a lot of things. So that's something that we're going to have to do with a brush. Okay. So before I do that, we're going to come down to details, sharpen this up. Throw that mask on there. Before and after. And now let's come in here with the adjustment brush, and we're going to get like a really soft brush. So we're going to feather this a lot. Big. And warm this up. Drop the saturation, and we're going to just paint it right at the top. Right where that horizon line meets the top of the canyon. And you can already see the blues go away. Looks good. All right. So now I'm going to come in here. I'm going to put a graduated filter at the top, put a little bit more clarity into the sky, really make those clouds pop. Too much. Starts to look fake. All right, all that done. The only other thing that I see, and it could be that you guys just hiked up here, but he looks pretty fleshed out. And I think if this was a picture I was going to slap on my wall, I'd probably want to even out those skin tones. So what we're going to do is get a brush in here. I apologize for drawing on your face, bud, if you're watching this or if your dad shows this to you. But we're going to zoom in right here. Look a little red. It's okay. Probably a hard hike. And we're going to actually bring the clarity down. It's going to reduce that contrast between skin tones. We're going to bring the saturation down, and we're just going to go ahead, let's brush a little softer. We're just going to brush that right over here. You're going to see, just go away. Don't trust things you see in magazines, people. Bring that down just a little. And you can see when I remove that or add it, smooths that out. So happy with that. Zoom that out. I think this overall needs a little bit more saturation. There we go. Bring the blues up a little bit so that sky brighter. Here we go. Put a vignette on it. That makes the blues a little too, the sky up here looks a little too fake. I might just come back up here and bring the blue back down to 0. All right. Before, after. And this is the thing, it's not a huge difference. When you take a great photo and it's properly exposed, and you, as we say in the, I'm not in the photo industry, but as we say in photography, you got it right in camera. That's the most important thing. You don't have to do, you're just enhancing it a little bit. You're just bringing out the mood, the message, the feeling, the emotion that you want the photo to portray. So, can we see shot data? This was an iPhone photo, yeah. And it did show it in here. iPhone XR, back camera, ISO 25. Apparently the exposure on that is 1/850th of a second. It's pretty quick. And f1.8. This doesn't look like an f1.8 photo, so I don't know where they came up with that. If this was f1.8, I think the canyon would be blown out a lot more. But either way, iPhone camera takes some pretty cool shots. So, before, after. All right. So far we've done this shot right here. This was our before shot. That we got the group over here. It's just really washed out, really hazy photo. And then after, there's some things that I might go back and change. I think I went a little too extreme on the blues, but that's another thing is I'll come back and look at the photos later. And sometimes make a couple extra other adjustments. This photos. Thank you, Steve, for sending me these. Appreciate it. And then this last photo, this was a shot that I took. One of the coolest things when we were in Italy was this morning. It was raining out. It was like 6 a.m., something like that, 6:30, and nobody was on the streets. Nobody was out. I was able to go to the Trevi Fountain, which if you look at any photo of the Trevi Fountain, it is packed, just hordes of people in there. You can never get a good photo of the Trevi Fountain, and nobody was there. I had it to myself. I got some cool photos, and I got this photo of the Spanish Steps. Up here, I believe this is like an art or music academy, if I recall correctly. It might even be French, even though this is in Rome. But the photo itself, I was trying to get that really low level shot, and what I wanted to do with this was actually swap out this sky. Although it is, you know, it's cloudy, it kind of goes with the mood of the photo. I think I want to change that out and show you guys how you can swap out the sky of your photo. This is kind of a debated um, subject. I don't even know if the word subject, but it's definitely something that some people are for it, some people are against it. For me, I think it's all a form of art. Is it? Some people don't think it's art, but for me, it's a form of art. You can make the photo whatever you want it to make it. So in this case, we are going to change out this sky. First thing first, we're going to come through here and just do all of the steps that we did before in the lens correction. Click these off. I'm going to do this pretty quick now that I've explained it a few times. You bring that down. Go. Highlights. Bring the highlights down. There. Bring the shadows up, get some detail off of the bottom there on those cobblestones. These are really slippery when they're wet, by the way. So if you are somewhere with cobblestones and they're wet, be careful. I want to bring these whites up, but not too much because it's early in the morning and it's raining. I don't need to make it look like some summer day. I'll bring the blacks down a little bit, and then let's go ahead and add a little bit of texture, a little bit of clarity. I'm going to leave it like that. I'm not going to add too much there. I don't think it needs it. I'm actually going to desaturate the photo a little bit. Almost like a black and white, but not completely. We have these lights on here in the windows. I think that's a really cool look. And I want to keep those kind of like that warm yellowish tone. All right. Before I get into the tone curve, I'm actually going to do that after, once I have the sky that I want. And let's go ahead. I'll do the sharpening as well after. We've got to make sure that the sky matches the values of the photo. If you have like a really high definition, high resolution sky and you put it on a really low resolution photo, it's obvious. So I probably should have gone ahead and done this before the stream, but I'm just over here on my other screen. I'm going to pull up Google and we're just going to type in like stormy sky. You know, I can pull this over here if you guys want to see what's going on. And I'm just going to look for, if I go into tools and change this size to, you know, something pretty big, larger than 2 megapixels. Just come in here and grab a sky, as long as it doesn't have some type of watermark or overlay on it. And there's tons of like stock skies, but you got to make sure your sky angle matches the angle of the photo. So don't forget, you can see kind of the angle of the photo here. We're almost looking up at the sky. Where'd I go here? Where's my, here we go. We want something that has that little bit of angle to it. Might work. How big is this? I'm gonna have to desaturate this a little bit, but I'm just gonna go ahead and copy this image. We're gonna come back into Lightroom, edit this in Photoshop. This is where we're going to swap our sky. Might not work at all. I'm gonna go ahead and duplicate my image here. Just work on this one up here. Grab my quick selection tool, and we're just going to try to remove sky. Zoom in and make sure I'm not chopping some things off, like this light right here. That light. Don't want to lose the cross. Cross up here. Cross up here. A lot of crosses in Rome. A lot of them. All right, now if we go ahead and hit select and mask, flip this to selected area, and let's go ahead and change this to a color that we can really see difference, like on green. Good. And we're going to use this tool right here. This is the Refine Edge tool, and if you just drag this, kind of paint it across, make it a little bigger. Hang on. You just paint it along the edge, it'll actually figure out what it is you're trying to select. Now you can see that just the cross is sticking out there. Might lose a little bit of that one. Some of it's still shining through. Get rid of this. Here. I have no idea how they do it, but they do it, and it works great for photos. We're going to get the white out of this palm tree. I had no idea that there's palm trees in Rome, but apparently there are. And now you can see everything that's green is the area that we're going to get rid of. In this tree. Not going to go too crazy on it, but that is looking pretty good. All right, go ahead and hit OK. And we're just going to hit the delete key. And now we don't have a sky. All right, so now we're going to bring that sky that we got from Google, that I hit copy, back into Photoshop. Control V is going to paste it. We're going to have to make this bigger. That. We're going to drag it behind our image like that. And there's some work that needs to be done here. Obviously, I think that the clouds look a little big. Make this a little smaller. There we go. And obviously the white balance isn't the same. I keep saying obviously. Maybe it's not obvious to you, but the white balance isn't the same. The sky is more a cooler tone where the foreground is more warm. It just doesn't look natural. It's not natural, but we're going to go ahead on this layer right here. We're going to hit image and adjust. Where's my white balance? Might have to do it in. Actually, we just bring the saturation down a little bit. That'll help. Brighten it up just a little bit. I know there's a spot in here that we can adjust the color. Color balance? Yes. All right, so this is kind of like, I think it's something about the shadows. I don't know if this is the right sky for it. Contrast. Try this. Man. Sometimes it goes better than others. You know, you gotta play around with it, see what you like, and just keep learning. I watch all different photographers edit. There's so many different videos on YouTube to get new ideas, but the best thing that you can do is edit a lot of photos. And in fact, I have some friends who recently bought cameras, and if they're watching, they might be on here right now, and they don't ever use them. And they ask me a lot of questions about how to use it. The best advice I can give you is to just shoot a lot of photos. Just get out there and take a lot of pictures. There we go. Maybe it just needs to be a little brighter. Take some of the blue out of that. I can paint that after. Let's go ahead and bring this back into Lightroom and put a bow on this whole production. Should get a copy here. There it is. Now we can use our brush tool here. Just kind of draw over this. Here. Trying to do this really quick. Much. Go. That. Good. Bring some of the blues out of this. Hurry in, hurry in. There we go. Now we're going to come into the tone curve. Throw that contrast on there. Maybe pull the blacks down a little further. There we go. All right. It's looking okay. The sake of time, slap a vignette on it. Play around with it. The last photo of the night's always been the one that I've, well, actually the one on Monday night turned out pretty good when I made it black and white. Maybe that's the answer. And it looks better. I don't know that I'm necessarily like amazed by it yet. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you fixed the horizon. Oh yeah, I didn't even crop that. I don't know if that's necessarily the horizon line right there though. I think you could do it. You probably want these stairs to be level, I think. I think if you drop that angle tool and you want to just pick a step and make like one step level. Looks pretty good. Slight adjustment. I think if you went off of like this line, it would mess up the stairs. If you did it off the roof, no, that's not necessarily your horizon line. Even though that is a kind of cool, like, getting a little too abstract. But anyway, thank you. Like I said, more what? Ooh, edit more. You can go back and watch. It's gonna record. And I don't have any more. Actually, I do have. This photo is pretty cool. So this is one of the guards, one of the Swiss guards. I think they're Swiss guards at the Vatican. So this is right out in front of St. Peter's Church, and they wear these really goofy outfits. I couldn't imagine like having to stop at 7-Eleven while you drive to work and hop out wearing this. Unless they have like a locker room or something at the Vatican that they change. But you could see him not super amused with me. But they don't really break face. They're not like the guys in like Buckingham Palace that you can get up in their face. Like they will move, they will look around. But I thought it was a pretty cool photo. I don't think there's a whole lot you have to do to it. It's probably going to be a pretty basic edit. First things first, like I said, click, change the lens calibration there. Warm them up just a little bit. Exposure up a little bit more. And you can, I'm just looking at the histogram when I'm exposing these. I tend to like to, like I said, underexpose my photos. Photo of Rodman. It does kind of look like Rodman. Not really. Rodman wouldn't be that serious. There we go. I don't know how. I guess we could do the Instagram crop 4x5. Get that little pole over here out of the way. Just bring that in. Maybe get this part of the ball out of the way. Smack him in the middle of it. I think this is a good centered photo. Actually, I'm just going to get the whole arch out of there. Arch. Is he centered? There we go. Sharpen him up a little bit. Perfect. No, I'm just kidding. I do see that mistake a lot, and I probably make it too. But I see a lot of people, especially with like the editing options in your cell phone, just like vignette the crap out of it. And it does look nice. The vignettes look nice, but I think when you go over the top, it looks like you went over the top. Every photo is going to have different things. You can see here that this photo is pretty far underexposed. I like that personally. I've had people ask me and send me, you like the arch? I think I have another photo just like this. I think the arch is in there. But that's the beauty of photography. Everyone's gonna have a different eye, a different opinion. But I've had people ask me like, why is your photo so dark? I don't know. It's just my style. Pull that up a little bit. Yeah, there we go. That looks pretty good. Before, after. Cool. But like I said, 8:06. I want to keep this around an hour. Appreciate you guys for stopping by. This video will be available. I don't know how long it takes after. This is the first video I've done on YouTube. And so far it seems pretty good. But it should save it and be something that you can go back and watch later. And you can like scrub through and, watch it where you want. But thank you all so much for watching. I will be back on Monday night. Depending, I don't know if I'm going to keep doing this twice a week unless, might do this once a week. We'll see. I want to get some other photographers on here, not only so that they can share their photos and their tips and their tricks, but I want to learn as well. I'm, maybe a little selfish in that regard. I want to learn from other photographers. I know Steve Martine, a really good photographer friend of mine, shot for Time Magazine, National Geographic. The guy's phenomenal. Check him out on Instagram, and I think it's stephenmartine.com. Might not be. But I've been toying around with this idea with him, and he seemed like he was interested. So maybe we'll get him on the next episode. I don't know about Monday, but maybe next Thursday. So anyway, I'll say goodbye one more time. I'm actually closing it this time. Seriously. I need like a screen that actually says like